Laura Benton stared at the faded missing person poster, a knot of unease tightening in her gut. Amy Wallace, a woman with eyes that could hold 1,000 stories, had vanished, gone without a trace. Laura, a journalist with an insatiable thirst for the truth, ran her fingers over the grainy image. Amy's smile, frozen in time, seemed to mock the despair etched in her eyes. This wasn't just another story, it was a puzzle begging to be solved. The air hung heavy with the scent of rain and secrets. Laura took a final drag of her cigarette, the ember glowing like a malevolent eye in the gathering darkness. The case had gone cold, the police baffled, but Laura, with her innate ability to sniff out the truth, sensed there was more to the story. Her phone buzzed, a jarring interruption to her thoughts. It was Detective Miller, his voice gruff, his tone laced with a weary acceptance of defeat. The case was closed, he said, no new leads. Laura crushed the cigarette under her heel, a steely glint in her eyes. This was just the beginning. Amy Wallace, the woman in the photograph, had lived a life that seemed idyllic on the surface. The perfect family, a loving husband, a successful career. She had it all. Yet, behind the facade of perfection, a darkness lurked. Laura delved into Amy's life, piecing together fragments of a past that hinted at hidden anxieties and unspoken fears. Interviews with friends and colleagues painted a picture of a woman teetering on the edge of a breakdown. The pressure of her high-powered job, the strain of keeping up appearances, the whispers about her husband's infidelity, it was all taking its toll. Laura could almost feel the weight of Amy's unspoken burdens, the silent screams for help lost in the cacophony of her seemingly perfect life. Her investigation led her to Amy's therapist, a woman with kind eyes and a guarded demeanor. The therapist, bound by confidentiality, could reveal little, but her hesitant words and troubled glances spoke volumes. Amy had been struggling, battling demons that threatened to consume her. The house stood at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, a silent sentinel guarding its secrets. Laura stood before it, a sense of foreboding washing over her. The windows, dark and lifeless, seemed to stare back at her, daring her to uncover the truth hidden within. The air was thick with the silence of absence, the unsettling quiet of a life abruptly interrupted. Stepping inside, Laura was met with an eerie stillness. Dust motes danced in the faint rays of sunlight that pierced through the gaps in the curtains. The air was stale, heavy with the scent of neglect and the lingering memory of Amy's favorite perfume. It was as if time had stood still, frozen in the moment of her disappearance. The house was immaculate, almost too perfect. Every surface gleamed, every object meticulously placed. It felt staged, a carefully curated tableau meant to deflect suspicion. But Laura, with her keen eye for detail, noticed the subtle discrepancies, the tiny imperfections that betrayed a deeper truth. Laura's investigation circled back to Amy's husband, Mark. He cut a striking figure, tall, with silver hair that hinted at a life well lived, but his eyes held a coldness that sent shivers down her spine. Mark claimed to be devastated by his wife's disappearance, but something about his grief felt performative, rehearsed. He answered Laura's questions with practiced ease, his alibi watertight. He'd been out of town on a business trip, he said, his voice smooth as silk. But Laura, with her years of experience reading people, sensed a flicker of something dark beneath the surface. It was in the way he clenched his jaw just a touch too tightly, the way his eyes darted around the room as if searching for an escape route. Laura pressed him on his relationship with Amy, the rumors of infidelity. Mark's composure finally cracked, a flash of anger crossing his face. He dismissed the rumors as vicious lies, his voice tight with barely suppressed rage. But Laura had seen enough to know that appearances could be deceiving. The phone rang, shattering the silence of Laura's apartment. She picked up, her pulse quickening as a raspy voice whispered on the other end, "You're getting too close." The voice, distorted and unfamiliar, sent a chill down her spine. Fear, primal and instinctive, welled up inside her, yet she clung to a shred of composure. "Who is this?" Laura demanded, her voice surprisingly steady. But the only response was a click as the line went dead. She slammed the phone down, her heart pounding in her chest. The call, brief and chilling, confirmed her suspicions. Amy's disappearance was no accident. Laura paced her apartment, her mind racing. Who had called her? Was it the same person who had taken Amy? She thought back to the people she'd interviewed, the whispers she'd heard. The call was a warning, a clear message to back off. The deeper Laura dug, the more she realized that the picturesque town held a dark underbelly of secrets. Whispers followed her like shadows, hushed conversations ending abruptly as she approached. It seemed everyone knew something, but no one was willing to talk. Fear hung in the air, thick and suffocating. She visited Amy's favorite haunts, the local diner where she was a regular, the bookstore she frequented. Each place offered a glimpse into Amy's life, but also revealed a network of connections, of hidden resentments and unspoken truths. The waitress at the diner, her eyes downcast, spoke of a mysterious woman who had visited Amy days before her disappearance. The owner of the bookstore, a man with a nervous disposition, mentioned a rare book Amy had been searching for, a book filled with dark rituals and forbidden knowledge. Laura sat at her desk, the scant clues scattered before her like fallen leaves. The missing person poster seemed to mock her with its unanswered questions. She had the nagging feeling that she was missing something, a vital piece of the puzzle that could unlock the mystery. Her gaze fell on a photograph of Amy, her smile radiant, her eyes sparkling with life. It was then that it struck her. The eyes, they seemed different, haunted almost. Laura grabbed her magnifying glass, her heart pounding with a mix of anticipation and dread. Examining the photograph closely, she noticed a faint reflection in Amy's eyes, a reflection that sent a shiver down her spine. It was a shadowy figure, tall and menacing, lurking in the background. The shadowy figure, whoever it was, held the key to Amy's disappearance. Laura's investigation led her to the outskirts of town, to a dilapidated warehouse on the wrong side of the tracks. The building, shrouded in an eerie silence, seemed to pulsate with a sinister energy. Graffiti-covered walls loomed over her, the air thick with the stench of decay and the promise of forgotten secrets. She cautiously approached the entrance, her hand hovering over the rusty handle. A chill wind whistled through the gaps in the boarded-up windows, whispering tales of things better left undisturbed. Taking a deep breath, Laura pushed open the door, the hinges groaning in protest. The interior was dark, illuminated only by slivers of moonlight that pierced through the grimy windows. Dust motes danced in the air, swirling like lost souls. As her eyes adjusted to the gloom, she noticed something that made her heart skip a beat. There, in the far corner of the warehouse, lay a single high-heeled shoe, its once gleaming surface now dull and scuffed. A cold dread gripped Laura's heart as she inched closer to the shoe. It lay discarded on the dusty floor, a stark reminder of the woman it belonged to, a woman who had vanished without a trace. Laura knelt down, her fingers trembling slightly as she reached out to touch the smooth leather. As her fingers brushed against the shoe, she noticed something else. A faint metallic scent hung in the air, barely perceptible but unmistakable. It was the scent of blood. Her blood ran cold. This was no longer just a missing person case, it was something far more sinister. Suddenly, a noise from the shadows made her jump. A low growl, guttural and menacing, sent shivers down her spine. Panic surged through Laura, threatening to overwhelm her. She scrambled backward, her eyes frantically searching the darkness for the source of the growls. The air hung thick with tension, the silence broken only by the sound of her own ragged breathing and the steady drip of water from a leaky pipe. She had stumbled onto something dangerous, she realized, something far more sinister than she could have ever imagined. But as she turned to flee, a figure emerged from the shadows, blocking her path. It was a man, tall and imposing, his features obscured by the darkness. He took a step closer, his movements slow and deliberate, like a predator stalking its prey. Laura's mind raced, desperately searching for an escape. "Don't move," the figure growled, his voice a low rumble that reverberated through the vast emptiness of the warehouse. Laura froze, her breath catching in her throat as adrenaline surged through her veins. She could make out the glint of something metallic in his hand, the moonlight reflecting off its sharp edge. Fear, primal and instinctive, threatened to consume her. "Who are you?" Laura choked out, her voice barely a whisper. The man chuckled, a chilling sound that echoed through the cavernous space. "You've been asking a lot of questions," he said, taking a menacing step closer. "Questions you shouldn't be asking." Laura's mind raced, desperately trying to piece together the puzzle of Amy's disappearance, the cryptic warnings, and this menacing figure. But as the figure advanced, his face illuminated by a cruel smile, Laura knew that she had stumbled into a web of secrets far more dangerous than she could have ever imagined. To be continued.